Okay, now one time we've got the belts loosened. I haven't removed the tensioner yet for the air conditioner and alternator. It's still right there, but what I did was just drop the belts out of the way. This one's still on the crank, but it's not attached. I wanted to show you this. One time you've gotten all that done, you can reach in, wiggle this crank, pull it out, just actually pull it off. So you don't need a... Okay, so we removed all of our lower bolts, the 12 millimeters in the corners. They're very tight. You're gonna need a breaker bar or a good 12 wrench. This light. And we've also removed the two bottom bolts off the bottom of the tensioner right there, and also removed the pulley. Reason being is so you can reach up in there behind there now and get the top bolt that's on this bracket. And one time you remove that, then you'll be able to get to the bolts along this side of the cover here on the alternator and AC side. Then we'll jump over to the power steering side and I'll show you how to do those. But right now we're just going to remove this bracket and remove the bolts on the cover right behind it. Okay, so I removed the tensioner and now we're left with the alternator. And we're going to have to take off the bottom bolt on the alternator, and it's banjo tight. So I'm going to show you a little trick I use to overcome that, because it's such a hard spot. I'm going to put my wrench on the nut up top. Then I will stick a pry bar in here on the body. See if I can get this shot. Come down on my wrench. So I'll be careful to hold that wrench good and square on that nut. You do not want to round any of these nuts. Like I said, they are all banjo tight. So make sure of what you're doing before you put heavy pressure on any of them. Make sure you got good quality tools, or at least not rounded edges on your tools. Gotta love the good stuff. Now for a problem bolt. On top of the power steering, there's going to be a nut that goes right through the aluminum housing. And I don't know if I'm going to be able to catch a shot of this or not, but I'm going to try. And of course I can't. But it's on top and it comes through, much like that stud right there sticking through, but that's an alignment dowel, that's not it. But if you look on top of the pump, there'll be a nut that's sticking through. It's also going through the timing cover. And if you will look from the back side up through the axles, in other words, go up underneath the car and look up through there, you'll see a rather large 14 millimeter nut head sticking out right against the block and under the exhaust manifold. That's the bolt you'll want to remove so you can lean back the power steering pump, and it's also connected to the timing cover. I do that one basically the same way. I'll stick a wrench on it and I'll come through here with a pry bar and move it, because all these bolts are really banjo tight. Come up to the top side of the mount and we're going to release all these bolts that we have in here holding the mounts. You got one on each side, two of them here, and then you're going to have two on either side of the mount. So what we're working on right here is this main motor mount. Now I'm going to remove that mount, and to do so we're going to start by removing the cover off the box. There'll be a little lock tab on the box right here. You'll have to remove this box up to get to the other 14 millimeter bolt down here at the motor mount. Okay, so I took the two 10 millimeter retaining bolts out of the coolant jug, put it to the side. I removed the box, just as I said, reduced the clip 10 millimeter down there. Then you remove the bolts from the motor mount where you can get this front mount. Pull it out of there. It's easy when you hold your mouth right. Alright, now we just made a big gaping hole into the front of the engine. You see these two bolts right there on the front of the mount. We're going to want to remove those now. Remove that bracket off, because obviously our cover won't slide off around that. So now we're going to remove that. Now we remove the mount and get on to the next step. Alright, I'm going to show you all a little trick. It's called locking wrenches. Because these bolts are so tight and everybody may not have a breaker bar or something like that, what you can do is actually take another wrench and hook it into the top of the first wrench. Gives you much more pulling length, which gives you more torque on the nut that you're pulling on. Okay, so we removed our motor mount out of the hole, and looking pretty good. There's another 10mm right here that exposes itself when you remove the mount. You want to get that. The stud left over down there on the engine is not going to leave enough room to slide the timing cover off and out of the way. So what you'll have to do is remove that stud. 9 times out of 10 you can just reach in there and unscrew it with your fingers. A little wiggle, unscrew, little wiggle, unscrew. Sometimes you have to put a pair of pliers on it, channel locks I prefer, and grab a hold of the smooth side. If you're concerned about it all damaging those threads, slide your nut back on and then grab a hold of the smooth side. Just make sure not to damage those threads, because you're going to have to remove that stud, and that's next. Okay, I got out all my bolts, motor mounts, everything's looking good. You think, oh, I'm ready to pop off the cover. Not quite. Now what I'm going to want you to do is get up underneath the vehicle, and you'll see that the oil pan has a series of 10mm nuts all the way around it. All of them are fairly easy to get to, so it's really no problem, especially when you got an air gun. Ha ha ha. So what I'm going to do now is drain the oil and remove the pan. And there's going to be 2 bolts up here through the front that are going to be attached to the cover, the timing cover, so we'll need to come up through the oil pan to get those. Failure to do so will bust the timing cover and ruin your day. So remove the oil pan. Let's have a good day. It is stuck. Stuck like Chuck. There we go. There's our bolts. One of them is going to be a very, very long one right here. The other one's going to be just up there on the inside there at the lip at the front. You'll see it. 12mm. Get those 2, that one and that one up in the hole. Just follow the journal hole right here straight up into there, and you will find your bolt. Alright, so now we're ready to pop the cover off. As you can see, I've already cracked the top cover. I'm going to show y'all, if you look closely, right there, there are divots. If I can get it to focus. You see a little divot in the metal right there? That's actually so you can stick a prying device in between the cover and the block. That's why they'll make a little divot in the block right there between the cover. There it is. Those are located around in different places for the purpose of prying the cover off. Find one right here, a little prying spot. Now, warning. If you go to pry this cover off, it's going to be glued all the way around, so you're going to encounter some resistance. But if you encounter firm resistance, notice where that firm resistance is coming from and re-inspect for bolts that you may have missed. You don't want to bust this cover, and it is not just going to fall right off. Like I said, it's glued 7 different ways from Sunday, so just work your way all the way around it and pop it off. And like I said, if you encounter really strong resistance, examine that area for a bolt that you've failed to remove. Okay, so I've walked around and I'm satisfied that I got it all loose. Nothing's binding. I think I got a little bit more glue to separate and it's going to come off. The rear cam cover, that cover right there, we're going to want to remove that to give us a little bit more room to remove this cover out from the firewall. So we'll remove them a couple of tins on that plate right there, and we'll be ready to yank the plate out. Pretty much what you're going to find when you get it tore down. The tensioner is going to be fully extended. It's going to have a little bit of slop on it when you push on it. You'll be able to push it in and out, but if you'll notice, the plunger is out onto it about here. It should be on the tensioner here. And what happens is the plastic on this tensioner bar breaks, slides down, and then the tensioner is not pushing it on the right spot. So getting you a new hydraulic tensioner and a new guide, you'll be ready to go. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to take that tensioner. It's held on by two 12mm nuts, as you can see right there. We're going to remove those two nuts and remove the tensioner. Then of course the guides. We don't have to worry about retiming it. We're going to make sure that the chain stays on right where the chain's at. We're just going to replace the guides and the tensioners. We'll clean up all the matting surfaces between the timing cover plate and the engine cover. Of our stuff over there. So we'll clean up our cover, replace our front seal, get everything ready to go back together. Okay, and for the cleanup, you don't want to cause gouges or any abrasions on the metal. So, you know, sandpaper, wire brushes tend to throw little wire bits everywhere. I prefer to use a razor blade. They make nice scrapers. Just be careful not to dent it. And also, if you choose to mimic me and use a razor blade, please be careful. I hold it flat on the surface and then rub it. That ensures me that the surface is going to be good and smooth and clean, and any other silicone beads I can come around the edges here and just trim it off and take it off, because you're going to have a good bit of silicone bead on it. And just make sure you clean up your matting surfaces very well. This is all reverse the video to put it back together, and there you go. Replace the tensioner, the guides. You should have no problem. Hope y'all enjoyed the video, and let me know if y'all need any more help. Okay, another little trick I've learned. If you'll notice, you've got these grooves in this cover, and they all need to be cleaned out, and they're just packed full of silicone. You're like, how in the world do I get them all out of these grooves? Well, this is what I've found works really well. You get you an old set of Allen wrenches and get your smallest one. Look at that. That's easy, wasn't it? Took it right out, all of it. So you just run around with your small Allen wrench. I prefer this one because it's got a handle on it and I can work. But if you just have a small Allen wrench, pocket screwdrivers don't really work that well. I found out that the Allen really works great. Just run around the whole edge, take it out, knock out your seal, put in a new seal. Just another little tip.